Part 21. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 201. Today's Rogtown seems to be particularly noisy. Early in the morning, many melon-eating people gathered in the square of Rogtown. As everyone knows, today, the Pirate King Gold Roger will be publicly executed by the world government and the Navy here. Perhaps in the world of pirates, there are many people who appreciate Roger. But looking at the entire sea, it is obvious that there are more people who hate Roger. No matter what Roger has done, in the eyes of ordinary people, he is a heinous pirate. Of course, this factor also applies to Shiji, Whitebeard, and even Orgrim and others. Their reputation may shock the world, but more often than not, they are infamous. This is the nature of evil pirates. Therefore, many people are looking forward to it, looking forward to watching the death of Pirate King Roger, as if this will evaporate the resentment in their hearts. It seems that there is peace in the sea. What a naive fantasy. Doflamingo was standing in the crowd at this time, choosing a good position with a good view, just in time to see the front of the execution platform specially built for Roger. Taking advantage of his height, he also discovered some interesting people among the crowded crowd in the square. Sand Crocodile was standing in the crowd on the other side, with a cigar in his mouth and a very cold and unruly expression. No one dared to approach him within 3 to 5 meters. Near the edge of the square, at the base of the wall, the very tall Moonlight Moria was also standing in the shadows, with a vaguely expectant evil smile on his face. This guy did not become depressed after being beaten violently by Orgrim. Instead, he became more active in the new world. It seemed that the floating island that was abandoned by Orgrim was once again taken into his hands, and he built the world's largest three-mast sailing ship, the terrifying three-mast sailing ship. After hearing the news that Roger was going to be executed here, Moria happened to run out of the windless zone. With his extremely huge ship, there is not much risk even if it travels across the windless zone. On the contrary, taking the Fishman Island route is very inconvenient. Hurrying slowly, Moria finally caught up with this grand event. Doflamingo put away his gaze, and then looked at the location of Mihawk not far away. There was a slight evil smile on the corner of his mouth, and then he turned to look at the clock tower in the distance. Phew, I'm really looking forward to it. Today is a day that changes the times. Doflamingo chuckled and said to himself. The clock tower not too far from the square, in the courtyard of this clock tower, in a dry well, suddenly stretched out a hand, and this hand clasped at the edge of the entrance. Not long after, a sturdy figure squeezed out from the dry well. Damn it, it's so winding around, I almost got lost in it. Orgrim patted the dust on his body and cursed. Hey, pick it up, Beckman's voice came from the dry well. As soon as Orgrim turned his head, a sledgehammer was thrown into the dry well. Orgrim reached out to fish it out and grabbed the warhammer in his hand. It was very natural, hanging on the tie behind his back. Then, Beckman's figure, which was much slimmer than Orgrim, emerged from the dry well very nimbly. You are such a fucking genius. You really found the secret route, Orgrim joked with a smile. There are also evil forces in Rogtown. They are always local snakes here, and they know some secret passages. It makes sense. My poison is not something ordinary people can handle, it takes just 3 or 5 hits to get them all, Beckman said with a smile. Then the two of them didn't delay anything. Instead of walking towards the square, they turned around and climbed up the stairs towards the bell tower. There is no doubt that the Navy is very vigilant here. Senyan, Orgrim also investigated some information. Admiral Zifa of the Navy headquarters is sitting here. It is said that General Waring States and Lieutenant General Garp also came. The rest did not see the elite force of the Navy. Zifa, when it came, it seemed that it was with Sakaski and others, but later, the warship left again and did not return. Orgrim guessed that it had changed defenses. After all, Although Roger's execution was very important, the Navy also it's impossible for everyone to focus on this matter, right? Therefore, according to the most accurate information currently, the Navy's combat effectiveness here is mainly Admiral Zifa, Sengoku Admiral, and Lieutenant General Garp. It seems that Kuzan and Jun are also yes, but is it there, unconfirmed. But no matter what, the fighting power here is also very strong. The only good news is that General Waring States and Lieutenant General Garp seem to have suffered some kind of shipwreck or attack before. Neither of them were in full condition, and they look seriously injured. Orgrim concluded without hesitation that they had a fight with their own Shiki boss in Marineford. Judging from their current status, Shiji should have gone to Imperial for further training. It's just that the Navy has not released this news yet. There may be some conspiracy. But Orgrim has no interest in this. Is it just related to the New World? This is also good for him. When the New World becomes chaotic, it will be easier for him to grab territory. As for whether the Navy will really regain its foothold in the New World. Just kidding, as long as the Great Pirate Age begins, the Navy will not be able to gain a foothold in the New World in a short time and will be busy dealing with the endless waves of pirates. After climbing to the bell tower, Orgrim and Beckman kept their bodies low and hid their bodies behind the wall of the bell tower. Only their heads were exposed, observing the situation in the square. I have to say that the actions of the two of them are really funny. They are worthy of being called thieves. When will Roger come? Orgrim asked softly. Execution at 12 noon, Beckman responded, turned to look at the huge clock behind them, and said it will be half an hour at the earliest, right? Then I'm not here early? Orgrim complained. Ah ha 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 ha, why don't you go back and have a couple of drinks? Come back after you have rested, Beckman joked. Orgrim was ridiculed by Beckman and was about to speak when his expression suddenly changed. A breeze blew through the high tower, and Orgrim's eyesight sank and he looked at the clock not far behind him. Beckman also put his hand on the revolver at his waist with a serious expression. As expected, not long after, a mysterious figure gradually emerged from the empty seat. This guy was all green and covered in a green windbreaker. Most of his face was covered. He was mysterious and could not be seen at first glance. Thing. Oh? Are you here to steal the audience seat from me? Durag, Orgrim grinned and asked with an evil and ferocious smile. At the same time, the warhammer behind him also began to feel faintly hot, and his muscles straightened a little, as if he was ready to fight at any time. That's right, Orgrim recognized the pretentious dealer in front of him at a glance. Isn't it the rumored Durag who left the Navy? Durag seemed a little surprised that Orgrim recognized him so quickly. After seeing the look he put on that could tear him apart at any time, he quickly waved his hand. Don't get me wrong, Orgrim, I'm no longer a Marine, Durag said softly. If we weren't the Navy, wouldn't we be enemies? You don't expect me to believe that, do you? Orgrim licked his lips and said ferociously. Believe it or not, I just bumped into you two accidentally. After all, I originally reserved the seat to Durag said with a smile. Durag was actually a little surprised. He had made a good reservation in Roger Town before and reserved this location to watch Roger's execution. But when he came over just now, he found there were already two people hiding on it. With the same glance, Durag recognized Orgrim and Beckman. He thought they were already here and wanted to say hello before he showed up. Yeah? Unfortunately, I came a little early. Can you please change your seat? This is good for both of us. After all, there is no trust between us. I don't want to have a dangerous guy squatting next to me while watching a movie, Orgrim said unceremoniously. Actually, I happen to have something that I want to tell you, Durag smiled and said. He learned about Orgrim's life and found that Orgrim didn't seem to be particularly bad in nature. Before he went to sea to become a pirate, this guy was a serious security officer who guarded a place. Judging from his behavior when he was young, he spared no effort in fighting pirates, which is why he finally became a pirate. Mainly because I was tricked by the Navy. After that, Orgrim did not do anything too outrageous. As for joining Shiji, Durag also knew that it was to find his sister or something. From these aspects, Dalag felt that Orgrim should be a young man who was about to make a mistake, and he was also quite affectionate. Now he is preparing to form a team, so he wants to try to invite Orgrim. Apart from anything else, if you can really pull him out of the abyss of being a pirate, it will be a good thing for the world. Kill two birds with one stone, why not? I originally wanted to find Orgrim when I had time, but when I met him this time, Durag was ready to start persuading Orgrim to behave. As a result, as soon as he spoke, Orgrim interrupted him directly. You don't want to be practical. If you ask me to say, actually, I am not interested in what you are going to say at all. I can roughly guess what you are going to say. After all, you are a guy with a bright future in the Navy. Suddenly left the Navy, it is impossible to say that you have no plans of your own, but you have been in the Navy to some extent, and I am the naval hero Garp, so I must have a strong sense of justice in my heart. Plus it's true that after you left the Navy, you didn't degenerate into a pirate or a gangster. That proves that you want to do something just, Orgrim said unceremoniously. Dalag looked at Orgrim with a confused expression, and he was also a little surprised. After a pause, Orgrim continued, then you think that a guy like me who was forced to become a pirate by the Navy might still have some kindness and justice in his heart, and would like to save I'm out of trouble, right? I'm sorry, I have to tell you, you made the wrong decision. I'm Orgrim, he is born evil and the public enemy of mankind. In this life, he likes to be a pirate. So, don't waste your energy on me. If you have nothing else to do, please leave as soon as possible. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 202. Durag was completely stunned by what Orgrim said, standing messy in the wind. After a long time, his sluggish expression returned to normal. He shook his head with regret and said, "It seems that you are very prejudiced against me. If you want to be evil, maybe I will soon be defined by the world government and the Navy." Evil, you really have no plan. Okay, since when has evil and justice been defined by the fucking world government? In my opinion, whether it is evil or just, everyone has a scale in their heart. I tell you unceremoniously, I consider myself evil and I am happy with it. You will be deemed as anything by the world government. It doesn't matter, but I can see that you think you are righteous. Therefore, from a fundamental starting point, we are not the same people at all. Please say goodbye now, Orgrim said very impatiently. I'm squatting here and preparing to cause trouble for you. What nonsense do you, Durag, insist on telling me? Are you annoying? Do you have any eyesight? Can you please stop pushing me so hard and say goodbye quickly? At any other time, Orgrim might have taken action with Durag. But at this moment, he has other plans. If he takes action, he will definitely expose himself. The Navy will definitely intervene at that time, and even Roger's execution may be postponed. Orgrim had no intention of extending Roger's life, so he beeped a few words with Durag. Dalag never expected that Orgrim would be so good at talking. He felt that he was already very talkative, but he was unable to say a word after being scolded by Orgrim for a long time. I feel a little aggrieved in my heart. Okay, you bastard, I have good intentions and politely tell you, but you can't really listen, right? Then just go live your happy pirate life and say goodbye. In this case, there is nothing more to say between us, so we say goodbye, Dalag said with some displeasure. He didn't intend to compete with Orgrim for his position here. Obviously, it was impossible for Orgrim to give up his position. And he didn't intend to compete with Orgrim here either. Grim takes action. After all, his father, Garp, is on this island right now. If there really is a fight with Orgrim, Durag is very unsure of one thing. That is whether his father, Garp, that chaotic funny guy, should hit him first, Durag or Orgrim. After turning around and taking 2 steps, Durag, whose lower body had turned into invisible wind, suddenly said as he was leaving Orgrim, "If you have new ideas in the future, you are welcome to do so at any time. Come to me." Orgrim was too lazy to talk nonsense to him, and waved his hand in disgust, indicating that I knew. Durag shook his head helplessly, and then his figure completely disappeared from here. Only then did Beckman let go of the revolver on his waist and said somewhat strangely, "Did that guy become a person with abilities?" "Probably. Weirdly, this ability is really hard to grasp. I don't know what's going on?" Orgrim smacked his lips and said, "If it's not a natural type, it should be a fantasy beast type." Beckman also nodded and said. After smiling a little, Beckman asked, "That guy wants to win over you, why don't you listen to him? At other times, I might be interested in hearing a few words from him. What time of day it is now, how can I have time to discuss the philosophical issue of justice and evil with him? What the hell, even if you search the entire sea, you won't find the answer." "Okay," Orgrim complained. In Orgrim's view, the revolutionary army that Durag finally pulled out is indeed quite interesting. If pirates are just a necessary evil for the world government, that Durag is simply digging up the roots of the world government. The world government can tolerate pirates. After all, there are endless pirates to kill in the sea, and after killing the pirates, the world government seems to have no such external. If the enemy is gone, it will easily collapse internally. Therefore, pirates are a necessary evil that must exist in the world government. Without pirates, the world will undergo unpredictable changes. It will not be good for anyone. Of course. Well, the world government only dreams of controlling the pirates to a certain extent, otherwise they will not be happy. Drago, on the other hand, wants to make a revolution and unseat the celestial dragons. On the one hand, it is challenging the government's authority and institutional issues, on the other hand, are challenging the legal rationality and legitimacy of the world government. After all, the celestial dragons are the representatives of the legal rationality of the world government, and are descendants of the 20 kings who originally formed the world government, aren't they? If you think about it carefully, perhaps Doflamingo and Durag should have a lot in common, right? Orgrim is not very interested in the revolutionary army or anything like that. Even if he is, it is only a business interest. In Grim's opinion, if he really gets involved in the arms business in the future and becomes stronger and stronger, then the revolutionary army will be his big customer. You, Kaido, compete with me and can sell the arms to the world government, then I will change the hands. Just sell it to the revolutionary army, and no one is afraid of anyone. Of course, in this kind of business, Orgrim has the upper hand, and the revolutionary army may ask for it. After all, if these guys want to cause trouble, they must have some decent equipment. But now is not the time to worry about these things. Orgrim quickly cleared his thoughts from his mind. He chatted with Beckman to pass the time while observing the situation in the square. Before long, the figure appeared, and at the same time, the live broadcast equipment setup was also turned on. "Are you ready to start?" Orgrim murmured softly. As soon as he finished speaking, 4 senior naval generals, Sengoku Admiral, Zifa, Garp, and Jun, appeared on both sides of the execution platform. Garp stood beside the 2 generals. And Jun, the 2 lieutenant generals. There is no doubt that although Garp and Sengoku are not in very good condition, their cards are set here and they are heavily guarded. Garp's eyes swept across the square, and then he looked at some buildings in the distance, but didn't find anything. He frowned slightly, seeming to be contemplating some issues. "What's wrong?" Zifa asked curiously. "I don't know, I always feel like something is wrong," But I don't know where the problem is, Garp said softly. Yeah? Zifa frowned, but he did not doubt Garp. Instead, he said in a deep voice, then let's be on guard. Be vigilant. With the appearance of the 4 senior generals of the Navy, the reporters in the front row became lively and kept taking pictures of them. At the same time, some bold guys were asking some hot questions. Warring States General, there are rumors that Roger surrendered and was not captured by the Navy. Is this true? What caused the injuries on you and Lieutenant General Garp? Could it be that someone hijacked the ship while Roger was being escorted? Are they the remnants of the Roger pirates? There is news that they have disbanded. Is it true? But Warring States didn't pay attention to them at all. He stood aside with a cold face. You can ask whatever you want. As long as I answer a question, I will lose. Seeing that the time was almost up, suddenly, the crowd behind the square became restless. A crisp sound of iron chains and shackles clashing against each other came from behind. Then, the restless crowd gradually became quiet. Before long, the whole square was silent. This was not because someone was maintaining order, but that everyone was being controlled by the prisoner. The momentum was suppressed. Orgrim also saw Roger at this time, and couldn't help but smacked his lips and said, this magnanimity is indeed worthy of the word Pirate King. At this time, on the empty street in the center of the square, 2 executioners were pressing forward a figure wearing a burgundy captain's coat. That figure clearly had heavy shackles on his hands and looked like a prisoner. But when he walked among these thousands of people, he raised his chest and raised his head, with a confident smile on his lips, and his aura was extremely calm. Looking at him like that, how does he look like a prisoner on his way to death? On the contrary, he seems to be walking towards the throne, King. This is the first time Doflamingo meets Roger, the famous legendary pirate. With just one glance, Roger's calm pace and demeanor towards death conquered him. This is, the King of Pirates, Doflamingo murmured softly. In the past, the kings in his eyes seemed to be those high-ranking celestial dragons, representing the nominal king of the world, noble and descendants of the Creator. But now, after seeing Roger, Doflamingo realized that his previous vision was so rubbish. Compared with the prisoner in front of me, Holy Land Marija, the superior celestial dragon, seems to be the real prisoner. Mihawk had never seen Roger either, and this was also the first time he saw Roger. Those falcon-like pupils were staring at Roger's figure. The sharp energy in his body was looming. He resisted the thought of drawing the sword and tried it in his heart, and quietly watched Roger walk past him. Pirate, King Mihawk murmured softly. On the other side, Crocodile's eyes shone with longing and excitement. He seemed to have found a target in Roger. As a pirate, he still has to become like Roger. The Pirate King is enough. What is a pirate without pursuit? Slowly walking through the crowd, Roger's figure walked to the execution platform. Looking at the 4 senior Navy generals standing on the left and right of the execution platform, Roger, a smile appeared on Jay's lips. As he walked past Garp, Roger murmured softly, farewell, Garp. Garp's eyes shrank slightly and his expression was slightly complicated, but in the end, he did not give Roger any response. Taking slow but firm steps, Roger finally ascended to his throne. After thinking about it carefully, I'd better stay here, otherwise I'll probably be sprayed to death by you guys. There will be 6 updates today, and there will be another update later, but the extra flowers will be paid off soon. Guys, hey guys, if you have any flowers, don't keep them, throw them all at me, I'm thick-skinned. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 203. Walking onto the towering execution platform, Roger crossed his legs casually and sat directly there. Then, a relaxed smile appeared on his lips, as if he was not afraid of death, and he looked around the square. Like a king, scanning his subjects. Soon, Roger discovered Crocodile and others, but he didn't pay attention. On the contrary, there were two guys who were not visible in the crowd, supporting each other and crying, but they attracted Roger's attention. He, Shanks, Bucky, have you two come to see me off?" Roger murmured softly. He had not seen Shanks and Bucky for a long time, before heading to the final island of Raftru. Bucky fell seriously ill and could no longer continue sailing in a short period of time. Otherwise, they are very likely to die. At that time, Roger and the others did not have much time to wait, so Shanks volunteered to stand up and leave his friend Bucky to take care of him. Therefore, the only one in the Roger pirates was Shanks, and Bucky were the only ones who failed to board Raft Drew. That was the last time Roger saw Shanks and Bucky. Later, after returning from RAF Drew, Roger pirates the group was disbanded on the spot. Roger knew in his heart that he had already arranged what should be arranged, and Rayleigh and the others would not come here. At this time, he could see Shanks and BA again before he died. At one glance, he seemed to have no regrets in his heart. "Do you have anything to say?" Roger, the executioner standing behind Roger, asked. Roger smiled, shook the shackles in his hands, and asked, "Can you untie this? My wrist is itchy and I want to scratch it." "What are you talking about? How is this possible?" the executioner said angrily. "Ah ha 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 ha, what the hell, now that it's reached this point, am I still going to run away?" Roger laughed and joked. The sun at noon gradually rose, and time slowly moved towards the end of Roger's life. Sitting cross-legged on the execution table, Roger raised his hand impatiently, and the executioner behind him, the officer, was startled and couldn't help but tighten his grip on the sharp torture knife, fearing that Roger would do something crazy. However, Roger just raised his hand to block the dazzling sunlight and murmured, "If there is a knife, an umbrella would be fine." At the same time, the Warring States General standing under the execution platform took out his pocket watch and took a look at it, and then whispered softly, "It's almost time, prepare for execution." Roger seemed to realize that his life was coming to an end, and he curled his lips slightly, as if he was about to say something. At this moment, suddenly, a guy in the crowd shouted, "Roger, you're going to die, where's your treasure? Where did you hide them?" As soon as this guy finished speaking, the square became agitated. Yes, Roger is the Pirate King. How could he not have treasures? Countless gold and jewelry. For a moment, all these people seemed to be interested in the legendary One Piece treasure. The corners of Roger's mouth raised slightly, and his lips opened as if he wanted to say something. The Warring States General's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly said, "Execution immediately." However, at this moment, the temperature of Rogtown, which was already very hot, seemed to rise rapidly. Roger, who was about to speak, was also stunned for a moment. He turned to look at the place where the temperature exploded. The next second, a flash of surprise and laughter flashed in his eyes. "Orgrim," Roger shouted happily. "Gee ha 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 ha, Roger, are you surprised or surprised?" Orgrim laughed and stood on the bell tower, and greeted him boldly. For a moment, everyone's eyes were attracted to him. Garp's face changed, and Warring States was also confused for a moment, and he quickly roared, "Quick, execute him immediately." The two executioners seemed to have just reacted. The torture knives in their hands stood up, and they were about to kill Roger on the execution platform. However, two gunshots pierced the restless square. The corner of Beckman's mouth with a smile on his face, the revolver in his hand emitted a touch of lavender poisonous gas, and he said, "The real performance begins now." At the same time as his words fell, the two executioners holding torture knives fell directly from the execution platform. At the same time, the warhammer in Orgrim's hand that was constantly emitting this hot breath also roared, and the strong figure rushed out of the bell tower with a sudden kick, and almost cracked the bell tower. A powerful impact exploded in the air, and his figure rushed towards the execution platform at an extremely fast speed. "Don't try to succeed," the cute rabbit beauty in Jun reacted the fastest. She suddenly transformed into a beast form, with 2 rabbit ears growing out. She unsheathed the famous sword Kinpura in her hand, kicked her feet, jumped up from the ground, and headed towards Orgrim attacked in the air. "Gee ha 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 ha, pretty girl, if you want to stop me, you are still a little short of the mark." Orgrim laughed, and the warhammer in his hand pulled out a flower shadow in the air, and smashed it directly towards Jun. Before he even touched the warhammer, Jun felt a high temperature rushing towards his face, and sweat instantly fell from his face. It flowed out from the forehead, and then quickly evaporated. Jun was shocked and didn't understand what was going on. "Frenzy storm," Orgrim roared angrily. The warhammer in his hand erupted with a powerful impact, which was quickly transformed into a wild air current. Then, the high temperature swept through the air current, and a heat wave rushed out. Jun's figure did not stop Orgrim in the slightest, and he was directly thrown away through the air by this unexpected blow. "Cap," the Warring States General shouted in a low voice. Garp's figure also jumped up, his eyes flashing. But at this moment, a smile appeared on the corner of Beckman's mouth. However, before Beckman could take action, a sudden flash of yellow sand and a swift desert storm hit Garp's figure and stopped him. "Gee ha 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 ha, although I don't know what you are going to do, but Orgrim, as a pirate, how can the Navy succeed in such a scene?" Crocodile's figure suddenly appeared in front of Garp, blocking Garp's figure, and said with a smile. In this moment, Orgrim had landed firmly on the execution platform. "Gee ha 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 ha, well done, Crocodile." Orgrim laughed and said. Although Crocodile's action disrupted Orgrim's plan and rhythm, it didn't have much to do with it. Hateful, the Warring States General's eyes flashed, and his figure was about to swell. But at this moment, a strong slash suddenly broke out, and my hawk took action. "Damn it," the Warring States General said in shock and anger. Sci-fi also wanted to take action, but Beckman was already on the bell tower. He seized the opportunity and shot him twice. The bullets were full of poison. Sci-fi did not dare to take them forcefully, so he was forced to take a few steps back. For a time, all 4 naval forces were entangled. Orgrim looked at Roger, who was sitting cross-legged in front of him, and asked, "How have you been lately? You bastard." "Ah ha ha ha, you really exceeded my expectations, Orgrim, but are you here to save me?" "Forget it, I come from a place of death," Roger smiled and said. "Save you? You bastard, stop dreaming. I'm not related to you, so why would I take such a big risk to save you? None of you from the Roger Pirates are here, okay?" Orgrim laughed. "So what are you here for?" Roger asked with a smile. "Of course I'm here to kill you," Orgrim said without hesitation. Then, he turned around and looked at the square, which was already panicking, and shouted loudly, "Gold, Roger is the king of pirates. As the king of pirates, how could he die in humiliation at the hands of the Navy? Even if our king is going to die, he will die in the hands of crazy and evil pirates like us. Gee ha 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 ha, tremble, wail, and dedicate your blood to our pirate king." As soon as Orgrim finished speaking, he struck hard with the warhammer in his hand towards the dense crowd in the square. A powerful shock wave erupted with a heat wave, wiping out hundreds of innocent people at once. He went in and exploded into a firework composed of scarlet blood and flesh and blood of stumps. His crazy behavior also caused the already turbulent square to completely go berserk, and Doflamingo even unleashed his parasite line, manipulating some people to kill each other. This fear spread, and for a time, more people were inspired by this atmosphere. While seeking self-protection, they also began to kill and push the people around them. Looking at the extremely chaotic Rog Town, Orgrim raised his warhammer with one hand and made a gesture of embracing the world. He opened his arms, faced the live broadcast phone bug, and loudly declared to the world, "Be miserable, howl, come on, struggle, offer your blood and salute to the fall of the Pirate King and the birth of the new era that is about to begin." As soon as Orgrim finished speaking, Hank and the other members of the Warhammer Pirates who had been ambushing on various high-rise buildings quickly lit up the artillery in front of them. For a moment, Rogue Town was filled with artillery fire, and it seemed like it looked like hell on earth. Under this chaos, all the pirates who had been hidden in the crowd also started to revel along with Orgrim and the others. At this moment, the warring States General and other righteous navy were all confused. He wanted to stop Orgrim, but he was blocked by his current opponent. He couldn't do it at all. He could only watch that bastard Orgrim stand on the execution platform set up by the navy and was supposed to usher in the era of justice. He gave a speech. They were standing and cheering. Roger was also confused at this time. He had thought about many scenes when he was executed, but he never expected that it would be such a chaotic scene. "What the hell?" forcibly turning his execution into "Have you attended the Pirates' Carnival?" Orgrim pulled Roger up, then laughed and said, "I know, you bastard must have something to say. Come on, face the world and recite the last words of your king." Roger, as the king of pirates, is naturally extremely crazy. For a moment, the atmosphere created by Orgrim was aroused. He laughed loudly, then looked at the live phone bug, and the corner of his mouth he put on an evil smile and declared loudly, "Do you want my treasure? So go find it, I put it all in there. Ah ha 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 ha, the era of great pirates has begun." For a moment, people from all over the world who had been watching this chaotic execution platform in confusion all cheered. The announcement of the Pirate King and the final words of the Pirate King spread throughout the sea. Then, Orgrim took out a piece of poison, facing Roger, said softly, "As the king of our pirates, the only thing I can do is to let you leave in such a dignified manner, Roger." Roger smiled, without hesitation, took the poison from Orgrim's hand, and said, "The last carnival in my life turned out to be my execution. It was indeed beyond my expectation. However, it also fits our identity as pirates. Gee ha 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 ha, the era of great pirates is about to begin. As a king, go lead this era, Gordy Roger. I, Hosgarot Orgrim, would like to call you Roger with all my heart," One Piece Orgrim said, and placed his palm on the heart on his chest, bowing slightly to show respect. "Ha ha 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 ha, in the end, will we still become partners who fight side by side?" "Sure enough, I had a hunch that you would get on my ship," Roger laughed loudly, and then swallowed the deadly poison into his mouth. Baker toxin is naturally very deadly, but this time, it did not cause any pain to Roger. His pupils gradually expanded, and his body weakened for a moment, and he was supported by Orgrim in his hands. "It's a pity that I can't see this great era with my own eyes, Orgrim, but I think you will definitely make her wonderful, right?" Roger whispered weakly. "Of course, how could I waste the era you started with your life?" "Roger," Orgrim smiled. Later, Pirate King Gold Roger, with a smile of relief on his lips, slept beside Orgrim. Orgrim laid Roger flat on the execution platform, then raised his warhammer and roared power and glory. His shouts instantly swept through the entire town of Roger. Then, Beckman, Hank, Mihawk and other more than 1,000 members of the Warhammer pirates who were on the island also raised their arms and shouted, "Blood and thunder! Struggling, moaning, and suffering, this era belongs to evil, crazy, and powerful pirates," Orgrim roared at the live phone bug. "For the death of the king, offer a salute." The sound of gunfire once again tore through the hustle and bustle of Rogtown. The great pirate era began on such a crazy day. The tide of the times is rolling in, and everyone who wants to stand in front of her will be swept away and brought into the torrent of history. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 204. It's too late, but it's soon. Don't look at Orgrim's fancy operation, which turned the entire Rog town into a pot of porridge. But in fact, it took less than 3 or 2 minutes from the time he stepped onto the execution platform to Roger's dignified death. Because of this, the Navy didn't have much time to react. When Orgrim finished everything, the live phone bug was hastily shut down. After all, those reporters would not take the initiative to shut down this thing. They would just watch the excitement and not take it too seriously. And from the beginning, Orgrim and others almost avoided attacks on reporters. Lieutenant General Garp punched the yellow sand, and this blow instantly knocked Crocodile away. Crocodile's figure condensed out of the yellow sand, and he stretched out his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. Garp did not chase him, but turned around and rushed towards Orgrim's position. Crocodile raised the corner of his mouth and put on an evil smile. This time, he did not stop Garp anymore. The previous attack was for the sake of everyone being pirates, and seeing such a big show was worth the price of admission. It would be a bit irrational to continue fighting, let alone fight a naval hero like Garp. Orgrim, Garp's figure rushed straight towards him like a cannonball. Orgrim laughed and danced with the warhammer in his hand. The scorching heat erupted again, and the red warhammer slammed into Garp. Strictly speaking, this is the second fight between Orgrim and Garp. When they were in the capital of Seven Waters, Garp only had Roger in his eyes. The last time they fought was in the North Sea, when Orgrim was just a fledgling. He was just a little guy. At that time, he was beaten so badly by Garp that he almost died suddenly in the North Sea. This time, Orgrim did not miss Garp at all. The warhammer packed with powerful power suddenly collided with Garp. The iron fists came into contact. A powerful impact instantly erupted from the place where the two met. The air was distorted by the high temperature, and then shattered by the expansion of power. The domineering confrontation of armed colors brought up sparks of lightning. Speaking of a stalemate, it was not a stalemate, it was just a short moment. Orgrim shouted loudly, and the warhammer in his hand exerted force again, swinging it out, and Garp in the air was forced by Orgrim. The blow was blown away. The strong figure directly hit a house in Rog Town. At the same time, the execution platform under Orgrim's feet also tilted, and it looked like it might collapse at any time. He was very excited. Is he now strong enough to hit Garp head-on? But soon, he calmed down again. Don't be arrogant, Orgrim. That guy Garp is already seriously injured, and he just fought against the sand crocodile. Although this is nothing, I'm down to earth and others in the air, it's normal for me to have an advantage over the explosion of strength. But I can't expand for this reason. The top priority is to run away, Orgrim muttered to himself to persuade his swollen heart. Just as Orgrim was thinking about this, a firework exploded on the coast of the port, and a huge warhammer appeared in the air. Orgrim grinned and stepped hard, causing the already tilted execution platform to collapse. And his figure also fell into the chaotic Rog Town square. Garp turned over from the ruins. The arm he fought with Orgrim was not seriously injured, but there was a dull pain in his chest. Under the bandage, the knife edge that was cut when he fought with Shiji seemed to have collapsed. The bright red blood seeped out from the bandage on his chest, which looked so scary. At this time, Garp's expression was very angry and ferocious. He opened the ruins and looked at the execution platform, only to see that the tall execution platform collapsed directly. Where is Orgrim still there? As soon as he turned on his domineering aura, Garp quickly found Orgrim from the chaotic crowd and chased after him without saying a word. However, as a pirate, Orgrim has no scruples. His strong figure is like a wild bull. Wherever he passes, he directly knocks away ordinary people who are caught in the chaos and fighting. The warhammer flies, the high temperature brings up the ashes. Splatter! As a righteous hero of the Navy, Garp certainly couldn't do this. In the chaotic and crowded crowd, he also had to take care not to hurt ordinary people. Sometimes when he sees someone about to be beaten to death, he can't help but meddle in other people's affairs, so he can't help but intervene. This back and forth forced Orgrim to run further and further away. It wasn't just Orgrim who was running, Beckman had already gotten into the dry well at this time. The Warhammer-shaped fireworks that exploded at the port just now were the signal for the Warhammer pirates to evacuate. The younger members of the 1,800 Warhammer pirates were hidden among the tens of thousands of people in Rogtown. They were all dressed very simply and looked like good citizens. Even if the Navy wanted to catch him, it would be difficult to catch him. Blood overflowed from the corner of Mihawk's mouth. He stretched out his hand to wipe the blood. He held the black knife in his other hand. He turned around and ran towards the crowd without continuing to entangle with the Warring States General. The Warring States General was also in a furious state at this time. His arm was already broken and was not healed. During the fight with Mihawk, although he did not suffer a loss, it could not be said to be an advantage. Seeing that Mihawk was about to run away, General Sengoku was not willing to let him go, so he started to chase after him. However, at this moment, 17 or 8 ordinary people who looked very unlucky rushed towards Sengoku. Up, down, left, right, limbs and heads, they hugged Sengoku's body randomly, still shouting, "It's not me, I'm out of control. Do not kill me." That's right, the person who caused the scene was Doflamingo, the logistician who arranged for these bullshit things in this plan. Orgrim and others did not assign him any combat tasks such as head-on combat. On the one hand, Doflamingo's strength is not very good, so he can fight against ordinary masters, but there are all Navy bosses present. With his strength, if he faced him directly, he would give it to him for free. What's more, Orgrim also knew that in the final analysis, Doflamingo was not his subordinate, he could only be regarded as a friend and half-partner. There is no reason for this guy to take risks forcibly, as it will also have a bad impact on their relationship. On the contrary, there would be no problem if he was asked to be an old yinbai, hiding in the chaotic crowd, using parasitic threads to cause trouble, and holding back the Navy. As a naval admiral, Warring States certainly couldn't imitate pirates. He would kill anyone who stood in his way. He was hugged by 17 or 8 civilians at the same time, so it was hard for him to struggle too much. Mihawk seized this opportunity and quickly disappeared into the chaotic frenzy of tens of thousands of people, slipping away without hesitation. The deep-sea overlord, the Black Narwhal, had already breached the port with its powerful firepower and sunk 2 huge warships anchored here. When Orgrim came here, there were still a few naval soldiers who were shooting at each other with the pirate boys on the Black Narwhal. Orgrim didn't care that much. With a few hammer blows, he killed all the scattered marines, and then boarded the deck without hesitation. "Get ready for a deep dive," Orgrim said in a deep voice. Vincent nodded quickly and said, "It's ready." Orgrim stood in front of the deck with his warhammer in hand, his eyes vaguely looking forward to it, but it was not difficult to see that he was indeed a little anxious. Not long after, Beckman came out of an empty house. Twisting and turning into the port, after Orgrim saw his figure, he also smiled, waved, and said, "Zifa was dumped by you. The Navy is too merciful, especially Zifa, the general who does not kill. Haha, I used poison gas to attack the people. He immediately gave priority to protecting the people, so I could naturally run away," Beckman said with a cruel smile. Don't look at this guy who usually looks gentle and a cultured person. But in fact, Beckman is also a pirate after all, and he has no bottom line like Orgrim. He hung out with other people, and was influenced by all kinds of pirate culture under the banner of Shiji. When he really started to take action, he was an out-and-out evil guy. Gee ha 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 ha, the Navy is not good at this, but this is also a gap that we can seize and exploit, Orgrim said. Not long after, people from the Warhammer pirates came back one after another, but it seemed that the younger brothers still suffered a lot. When Mihawk boarded the ship, Orgrim directly ordered the ship to sail, leave the port, and conduct stealth. There's nothing we can do about the rest of the younger brothers who didn't come. Orgrim couldn't go down to save them, otherwise he would be really stupid. As for Doflamingo, Orgrim and others have no intention of picking him up. This guy is responsible for dealing with the aftermath and delaying his actions. Moreover, he is not a member of the Warhammer Pirates, and the Navy will not focus on him. Perhaps these problems will be investigated later. But now, he is still relatively safe, at least much safer than the messy pirates such as Moria and Crocodile on the island. After he is done, he will leave from somewhere else on the Don Quixote family's ship. This was all agreed upon from the beginning, and Orgrim would be waiting for him on Avalon Island. Doflamingo needs to complete his pirate transformation before going to see Orgrim, and at the same time find a way to get this bastard Caesar Cullen out of the Navy. When the black narwhal dived under the surface of the sea, Orgrim and others truly breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, the world is already in chaos. Holy Land Marijoa, in the headquarters building of the world government. The 5 old stars looked at the small live broadcast screen in the office. When the screen went black, it meant that the Navy had finally turned off the live broadcast. The faces of the 5 old stars were extremely dark. After a long time, the bearded 5 old star smashed the teacup in his hand and roared, "Trash, these Navy are all trash, a good one. The beginning of justice, the execution of the pirate king Roger." Being made like this, Wu Laoxing was almost furious. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 205. On the Shampoo Islands, in front of the huge live broadcast screen, many people from various sub-islands and evil parties from the lawless areas gathered. Riley, on the other hand, was sitting on the roof of a house, looking at the darkened live broadcast screen. At this time, Rayleigh was shocked. The half bottle of wine in his hand seemed to be boring. He knew that bastard Orgrim would definitely cause trouble, but he didn't expect him to be so big. He also knew that Roger would definitely die, and he had his own plans, wanting to start a new era or something. But I didn't expect that it would turn out this way in the end. When a guy who didn't know who he was during the live broadcast asked about Roger's treasure, Rayleigh knew something was going to change. The result was good. Before Roger could even answer anything, the scene immediately became chaotic. That guy Orgrim came out of nowhere and stole everyone's limelight. Even Roger was suppressed by him. Looking at it now, I really don't know who started this great pirate age. Roger? Or Orgrim? This is really unexpected. Riley finally smacked his lips, picked up the bottle and took a sip. A few days later, although the world government strictly ordered the news of the world not to over-publicize this matter. But Morgans, a birdman, faced this kind of cross-era crisis. When it came to the news, they just pretended that the world government did not exist. Countless newspapers detailing the execution of the Pirate King in Rogtown, East China Sea, were spread all over the world. Even Morgans did not embellish or exaggerate anything. After all, this matter was there is no need to exaggerate, Orgrim has already done something crazy enough. With the fermentation of live broadcasts and newspapers, and the fermentation of fishing boats. The craze of the times has also swept out. The world has once again realized that what the world government calls human beings, what kind of existence is Hosgarot Orgrim, the public enemy, the evil skull crusher, and the disciple of the lion? Evil, crazy, powerful, and cruel are the most common labels on Orgrim. There is no doubt that the reputation, even at this moment, has surpassed veteran pirates such as Kaido and Charlotte Lingling. It has slightly caught up with top pirates such as Roger, Shiji, and Whitebeard. Later generations, history scientists call Orgrim and Roger the figures who started the great era of pirates. In the New World, Whitebeard is on the Moby Dick. At this time, Newgate is holding the latest newspaper in his hand. Live broadcast. He didn't look at it, and he wasn't very interested. Before Roger surrendered, Newgate had a drink with Roger once, and the two also talked about many issues. Newgate knew that Roger would. He also knew that Roger's death would bring unexpected changes to the world. But now, he regretted not watching the live broadcast. What the hell, was the change too sudden? So is it so manic and exciting? The news of the world took Orgrim standing on the execution platform, holding the warhammer high, and embracing the world as a cover photo. Even Newgate had to admit that Orgrim's this photo was taken very well. All factors such as wildness, unruliness, strength, and confidence can be seen in the photo. And the following description adds to Orgrim's cruelty, evil, ferocity, and crazy. The world government also gave Orgrim a wave of new definitions. The most brutal and evil pirate in history, source of chaos Hosgarot Orgrim, Newgate murmured softly. Then he couldn't help but laugh. Indeed, Orgrim's behavior is worthy of being the most cruel and evil in the eyes of the world government. To put it in isolation, even if Orgrim slaughtered the entire Rog Town, he would not have such a reputation. After all, among pirates, there are not a few bastards who massacre cities and destroy countries. To become famous, who wouldn't be responsible for hundreds or even thousands of lives directly or indirectly? Those who can sneak into the position of a big pirate are guilty of even more sins. But if we look at this matter comprehensively, Orgrim finally showed his evil and cruelty in front of the world, and guided the torrent and tide that changed the entire era. The Navy's righteous start was turned into the Great Pirate Era by him. Yes, the news of the world is official. Citing this concept, the year 1500 of the ocean calendar was recognized as the first year of the Great Pirate Era by the news of the world. The world government is not a fool, and of course it can understand the bad situation and influence behind this incident. So Orgrim, the most brutal and evil pirate, is well deserved. As for his new nickname Source of Chaos, you can see the attitude of the world government towards him. This guy is simply a humanoid self-propelled trouble-making machine. Before joining Shiji's banner, there would be trouble wherever he went. After joining Shiji's banner, it has finally been stable for more than 2 years. The results are good. The Navy has just reported I received the good news that Shiski was captured after invading Marineford. Orgrim, that bastard, seemed to have his reins taken off his body and let himself go. Rog Town is the best example of this. There is no doubt that the world government can hide the news about Shiji from the world, but in any case, it cannot hide the information about Shiji and his subordinates. After all, Shiji suddenly disappeared, and he disappeared in Marineford. This is particularly special. Everyone can figure out what's going on, okay. But before the world government gives a positive response, Shiji's forces will definitely not respond. Otherwise, there is no need for the world government to take action, they themselves will. Chaos arose. And Orgrim's performance at this time gave the world government a bit of a look like, boss, Shiji has been captured, I have no one over my head, I can let myself go. Rogue Town riots, death toll, general population 7,341, the Navy lost 672 lives. Did it take 3 days to restore the entire Rog Town to normal? Newgate smacked his lips and said. Don't look at the number, that doesn't seem very good. One punch from Newgate can kill an entire island. But there are big shots from the Navy in Rog Town. There are also. Before Newgate could recover from this, Marco walked in with several reward orders and said with a very complicated expression, Dad, these are the ones I just received, the latest bounty for those guys from Orgrim. Newgate was very interested in this. He stretched out his hand to take it and took a look. He was stunned for a moment, and then he seemed to understand. Source of Chaos Hosgarot Orgrim, the bounty is 2,236 million berry, Newgate murmured softly. How old was he last time? Newgate turned to Marco and asked. Marco said softly 900 million Baileys. 900 million, Newgate smiled. The last time the bounty was only 900 million Bailey, this time it went up to 2.236 million, the leap is more than just doubling. From 50 million Baileys, it doubled to more than 100 million Baileys. But can the concept be the same? Which pirate with a bounty of more than 2 billion Baileys is not a powerful figure? He, Newgate, is only close to 3 billion, okay. In other words, on a per billion basis, Orgrim is already a pirate on the same level as Whitebeard in terms of bounty. What the hell? Although Newgate knew that the bastard was not that powerful, no matter from the perspective of prestige, reputation, status, or other aspects. Orgrim has become a sea boss second only to himself. And to find him a player of the same batch, there is no doubt that they are guys like Kaido and Charlotte Lingling. But think about it again, how long have Kaido and Charlotte Lingling been at sea? Are you a veteran pirate now? That was a big shot who had already gone global in the Rocks era. He, Orgrim, has made all his plans. He has only been out to sea for 4 years at most, and he has become like this. If you give him some more time, will this guy not be able to go to the sky? However, Newgate was not really jealous. He smiled to himself and opened another reward notice. Venomous Calamity Ben Beckman, the bounty is 720 million Belly, Newgate whispered again. Newgate didn't know much about this Beckman, but I heard that this guy and Orgrim were brothers. Although they were not identical brothers, they were better than real brothers. These two, what a bastard, he caused Scourge all the way from the North Sea to the New World, and also brought Scourge to the beginning of the era of great pirates. Orgrim became a great pirate with a bounty of more than 2 billion, and Beckman, the man who made a fortune with him, got 700 million Bailey. It's not an exaggeration. Newgate doesn't know that the world government actually suspects that this rogue town incident was planned by Beckman. Because the world government also had a deep investigation into Orgrim. Investigation. According to the investigation, although Orgrim is not a real brainless man, he is not too different. In terms of strategy, he can only be said to be a little clever and cunning. And Ben Beckman seems to have always been him. They are both civilized and military, and they work well together. Therefore, the world government has reason to suspect that this bastard Beckman planned the Rogue Town incident, so it unceremoniously gave him 720 million won Bailey's bounty. Of course, Beckman didn't know about this. If he knew, he would definitely complain. That guy Orgrim really didn't have any brains before, but since he joined Shiji's banner, he has followed. It's like I'm enlightened. I don't know if I read too many books and my IQ has improved. This incident was not planned by me at all. What an injustice. After turning Beckman over, it showed, it's the handsome face of Joracole my hawk. Hawkeye Joracole my hawk, bounty of 550 million Baileys, Newgate smacked his lips. My hawk, although not as brutal as Orgrim in terms of strength, is not bad at all. This bounty is neither high nor low. The reason why he is so much worse than Beckman is mainly because Beckman is suspected by the world government as a plotter. Are the others gone? Newgate put down the reward order and asked. There are also some small roles, Marco said. Newgate nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he said, whether it's Roger's death, the decline of the navy, or the strong rise of Kazgaro's Orgrim, what's behind this? They all represent one thing, that's the new world, and it's going to be chaotic. It's the last day, and the monthly pass is still a little short of it. It depends on the big guys whether you can add more. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 206. A certain sea area in the first half of the Grand Line. The overlord of the deep sea, the Black Narwhal, is sailing on the sea. On the deck, Orgrim and others were also looking at the newspapers and news in their hands, as well as their latest reward orders. Hank, carrying a sledgehammer, stood on the deck with a silly smile on his face, almost drooling on his face. Abba 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 abba, Hank is like a dementia patient, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Uncle Hank, what's wrong with you? Looking like he's out of his mind? Lucci asked curiously. Hank came back to his senses and said excitedly to Lucci, Lucci, look, this is my reward, Lou. Chi took a look at the bounty order in Hank's hand, and then said happily, congratulations, Uncle Hank, you are also a great pirate with a bounty of over 100 million. Ha 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 ha, Hank, finally have a bounty of over 100 million, that guy Plank should be jealous of me, right? Hank said excitedly. After following Master Zui all the way from behind, Hank himself knew that his strength could never keep up with Master Zui and others. He could only be regarded as a small role, but now he is a small role, placed on the sea. He is also a big pirate with a bounty of over 100 million. Apostle of Chaos, Lakeless Hank, with a bounty of 136 million Baileys, ha 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 ha. Hank read it again and laughed. Orgrim was recognized by the world government as the source of chaos. He, Hank, was regarded as the little brother who carried the hammer for Lord Hammer, so he was given the title of Apostle of Chaos. I don't know if it's because he is a hammer bearer, a bit like Orgrim's follower, so even the suffix of the bounty is 36 million. Hank thinks he has finally made his mark. Although he seems to have nothing to be proud of under Master Chui, he is now a big pirate with a bounty of over 100 million. Sure enough, I, Hank, am not following the wrong person. Mr. Hammer told us in the small town of Ogland that if we follow him, we will be rich and prosperous, and we will have fame, wealth, status, and power. Now, isn't it true? Hank said to himself excitedly. He was so excited because the bounty was over 100 million. On the other side of the deck, Orgrim complained angrily, the source of chaos is a what's the meaning? I have emphasized many times that my name should be Doomhammer. Does the world government not give me face? Ha 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 ha, don't get an advantage here and act like a good boy. The bounty is 2.236 million Baileys. Now in the sea, the bounty for anyone higher than yours should not exceed 5 fingers, okay? As for this source of chaos, wherever you go, there will be chaos. If you are not convinced, why don't you go and beat Mary Joa? Take the Holy Land and make the world government recognize your self-proclaimed Doomhammer, Beckman joked with a smile. Whispering sound, Orgrim first glanced at Beckman with disdain, and then muttered, a little pirate with only 700 million belly dares to talk in front of me. As soon as Orgrim finished speaking, Beckman's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he asked with a threatening tone, what? You bastard, do you want to fight? Orgrim was about to start a fight with Beckman. After a few words, I saw Mihawk, the little pirate with 550 million belly, also reaching out and touching the handle of the knife behind his back. It looked like Orgrim dared to talk nonsense, and these little pirates dared to make gestures with him. Seeing this, Orgrim said disdainfully, as a captain, of course I have to be magnanimous. Forget it, I forgive your disrespect. After saying that, Orgrim did not wait for Beckman to speak, and quickly he said to Vincent, quick, speed up, let's quickly return to the New World and go to Melview, otherwise it will become chaotic as time goes by. I guess the New World is already in chaos, right? Beckman smacked his lips and said. As soon as Beckman finished speaking, Enel ran down from the watchtower, holding another newspaper in his hand, and exclaimed, Lord Orgrim, big news is out. L.A. What's the big news? Isn't today the day to distribute newspapers? Orgrim said a little strangely. Urgent special issue. Enel responded quickly. Orgrim's expression changed slightly. Once the News of the World sends an urgent special edition, It will undoubtedly be a big event. Beckman reached out and took the newspaper and read it. After 2 glances, he said in surprise, the Navy has released the news about Boss Shiji's arrest. Orgrim moved forward to take a look, and it was indeed the case. It seems that in order to save the situation, the Navy has to make some responses in advance. However, is it too naive for them to want to suppress the tide of the times on the sea with the news that Boss Shiji is in jail? Orgrim smiled and said, although it cannot be suppressed, it also has the effect of alleviating and improving the image of the Navy. Of course they are in urgent need of this now. Moreover, you made a big fuss in Rogtown, but in the final analysis, you are also a lion disciple. Yes, the Navy is now expressing it. It means that they can even catch the golden lion, so it's no problem to catch you. Beckman thought for a while and then said, gee ha 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 ha, their ability to dream is quite amazing. Orgrim laughed and mocked. Although it seems whimsical, the people on the sea may be guided by this fishing boat, Beckman said softly. It doesn't matter, time will prove the Navy's arrogance. Want to arrest me? Dream, Orgrim said nonchalantly. But then, he said with a serious expression, but now that the news about Boss Shiji has come out, the new world will definitely be more chaotic. The Golden Lion's fleet will also be discredited. I don't know what chaos will be there. What is it like? Didn't Neiman say everything? Except for Melview, the rest of the floating islands have all crashed. Even if this news does not come out, it will not be long before the people in the New World can figure out some things, and the civil strife in Shiji's name cannot be solved. Avoid, Beckman said quickly. Let it be chaos, I don't care about those bastard things, as long as Melview is in our hands, the IQ potion, Shiji's great library, and the land of gold are the really important things. Orgrim said in a deep voice. As he spoke, Beckman turned to the next page, and then his expression was stunned for a moment. I thought that this urgent special issue of the News of the World would be the news about Boss Shiji. The result is good. It turned out to be 2 big news released together. Look, the first King Shishibukai was born. Beckman pointed to the photo in the newspaper and said. Orgrim looked down and said with some surprise, did this guy betray our revolutionary friendship as pirates so quickly? Didn't he fight with the Navy when he was in Rogtown? That's right. The first king of the Shishibukai in the newspaper was none other than Sand Crocodile, that bastard. When he was in Rogtown, he looked like he was at odds with the Navy. Turns out it's only been a few days. He turned around and became the king of the world government's Shishibukai. So unscrupulous. And Orgrim is also very strange. Logically speaking, Crocodile may indeed be the first Shishibukai. After all, he became the Shishibukai more than 20 years before the plot began. But no matter what Orgrim thought, his impression was that he only became the king of the Shishibukai about a year after Roger's death. Now, Roger probably hasn't buried the body yet, and Crocodile has become King Shishibukai in one fell swoop. What the hell is all this? The Crocodile is 50-50, but you haven't challenged Whitebeard yet, none of your teammates on the ship have died, you haven't been betrayed, and your hand hasn't been broken yet. So damn fast, Orgrim couldn't help but said. It may be because of his performance in Rogue Town, or it may be because the world government had to quickly establish the King's Shishibukai in order to control the situation. In other words, Crocodile has some needs or conspiracy. In short, this is already an established fact, Beckman said softly. I have to say that the Navy and the world government did a good job in this operation. On the one hand, they announced the news that they had captured the Golden Lion Shiji. On the other hand, they smashed out another king's subordinate. The arrival of the Shishibukai. This can indeed give a lot of confidence to the general public and the various participating countries in today's chaotic situation. After all, this shows the decisive action and strong strength of the world government. If it starts with Crocodile, the Shishibukai under the king should be filled up quickly, right? My hawk suddenly asked. How? Are you interested in this position? Orgrim joked with a smile. Do you think the world government would give King Shishibukai to someone like me? A pirate who's not even a captain? It's almost enough for you. My hawk said softly. I used to think that it would be good for Orgrim to be the king of the Shishibukai, but now, the world government is eager to eat his flesh and drink his blood. I am afraid that even if Orgrim takes the initiative to apply to join the king's Shishibukai, the world government will reject it, Beckman said helplessly. To be honest, he had always wanted to persuade Orgrim not to care about those things that were not famous, and if there was a chance, he would join the 7 seas of war under the king. After all, it doesn't matter if your reputation is bad. You are already the public enemy of mankind. Do you still care about something as vain as the public enemy of pirates? And the benefits of joining the king's 7 martial arts are real. But now, Beckman has given up hope. With Orgrim's current crime, he probably begs the world government to join the king's Shishibukai, but the world government will not agree. At least, Orgrim's crimes cannot be pardoned until something major changes. After a brief pause, Beckman continued, although Crocodile has joined the king's Shishibukai, I think it is still impossible for the world government to quickly form this organization. The situation is now in the hands of our pirates. And, the Navy's sense of justice and misophobia are not so easy to overcome. Orgrim said with a smile. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 207. Aboard the Don Quixote family's Flamingo. Doflamingo was also looking at the newspaper in his hand. In the past few days, his mood has been ups and downs, and he was very excited. The era of great pirates has begun. It is a God-given opportunity for me to transform into a pirate at this opportunity. More importantly, he hugged the golden thigh of Orgrim, the big boss. Previously, Orgrim was a disciple of the lion, with a bounty of 900 million belly. Although it was not bad, it still seemed somewhat flawed. However, at that time, Orgrim was already the most suitable person that Doflamingo could contact and build a certain degree of friendship and trust. Even if there are some flaws, there is nothing to say. But now, in just a few days, times are different. In one fell swoop, Mr. Chui became a great pirate with a bounty of 2.236 million belly. There are only a handful of people on the sea who can earn a higher bounty than him. Perhaps looking at it now, he still looks like a silver medalist. But the gold medal is already in sight. Of course Doflamingo knew that Shiki, the pirate overlord, had gone to Imperial for further training. Roger, the pirate king, died of poisoning before his own eyes. Now, Newgate is the only gold medal pirate left. After Newgate, there are 3 bosses, Orgrim, Kaido, and Charlotte Lingling. Without the 2 giants of Roger and Shiji, Newgate alone would not be able to truly suppress these 3 bosses. Therefore, the smart Doflamingo has already figured out that if nothing unexpected happens, the top 4 will stand side by side on the sea in the future. And he had already hugged the thigh of one of the big guys. How could he not be excited? Don Quixote Doflamingo is about to take off. This in itself is good news. As a result, today we saw the news that Crocodile became the first king of the Shishibukai. This made Doflamingo, the young master, even more excited. Doflamingo has been paying attention to the king's Shishibukai plan ever since it was launched at the World Conference, and was looking forward to it. Of course he could also see that although this plan was supplemented by the Navy. But in fact, since its promulgation, the Navy has been putting pressure on this plan and delaying it. There are some rumors in the sea, saying that joining the Shishibukai is equivalent to a loser among pirates, a lackey of the world government and the Navy, or something like that. These are obviously small moves by the Navy. And it seems that if anyone has the intention to join the Shishibukai, or if there are signs of this, the Navy will focus on them. This made Doflamingo very upset and a little suspicious. In the end, the king's Shichibukai plan would be turned into an empty shell by the navy, right? Now, Crocodile's strong addition has given Doflamingo a shot in the arm. Everything is difficult at the beginning, but now that Crocodile has made the start, the addition of King Shichibukai is no longer as vague as before. Perhaps, have a chance yourself? Phew, but not now. The top priority is to hold on to Mr. Hammer's lap and make my Doflamingo reputation as a pirate. Doflamingo smiled and murmured softly. Nowadays, the situation on the sea is also changing. Orgrim announced in front of the world that the era of pirates has come. Roger even used his death-inspired those ambitious guys who wanted to go to sea to find the great secret treasure he left behind. At this time, there were thousands of sails racing and hundreds of boats competing. The number of pirates increased rapidly, and it is getting worse and worse. With more pirates, the sea becomes more chaotic. And the death of Shiji and Roger, and the strong rise of Orgrim also make the new world become chaotic. The era of the wave will sweep everyone in, whether it is the navy, the world government, pirates, or ordinary people, no one will be spared. After a month-long voyage, Orgrim and others, after successfully passing through the Fishman Island, which had begun to become chaotic, they entered the new world again. They came to Melview. Along the way, Orgrim and others also experienced the madness of the sea. The number of pirates can be described as a sudden increase. But what's a bit funny is that they didn't meet any pirates who dared to cause them trouble along the way. Some guys, when they saw Orgrim's flag from a distance, they quickly fled away. He didn't even dare to fight Orgrim face to face. Vincent modified the deep-sea overlord Black Narwhal according to the airship design of Sky Island. Although it cannot achieve true long-term flight, the climb is too high, such as flying directly over the Red Continent or something. But if you want to climb to Melview, there is no problem if you work hard. During this period, Vincent was also constantly practicing, looking for flaws, and improving his technology. I believe if you give him some more time, the Black Narwhal will be able to evolve again. After boarding Melview after dangers, Orgrim and others finally got off the ship. Neiman and the others had already been waiting here for a long time. What the hell, as expected, that dead old lady Charlotte Lingling has good intentions, and now she starts to devour Boss Shiji's territory. Orgrim walked down from the ship, looked at the information in his hand, and muttered a curse. At the same time, Neiman and others also gathered around. Kaido is still interesting enough and didn't interfere at all, Orgrim muttered to himself again. As soon as he finished speaking, Neiman said to Orgrim very excitedly, "Brother, you are so powerful. With a bounty of 2.236 million belly, you have become the top pirate." It has to be said that before Orgrim really returned to Melview, Neiman and the others had already powerfully controlled Melview. But in my heart, it always felt like they were missing a backbone. Their original pillar of strength, Shiji, now went to Imperial for further studies. This is simply a scam. But when Orgrim appeared, everyone seemed to have found a new source of power. Orgrim threw away the information in his hand, looked at Neiman with a smile, and asked, "How is the situation?" "Melview, there is no problem at all. We have killed some irrational people, and there are still some people who want to leave. According to your arrangements and instructions, brother, we have not retained anything," Ni Man said quickly. Katerina Depend said with a smile, "I guess they regret it now and their intestines are blue, right?" Although the news about Shiji was only released recently, people under Shiji's banner had already made speculations. The floating island crashed. Isn't that enough to prove that Boss Shiji had an accident? They didn't think about it at that time. Grim can really carry Shiki's banner. After all, Orgrim is a guy with a bounty of 900 million belly. He can't compare with Kaido or Charlotte Lingling, let alone the likes of Whitebeard. They are heroes. Most of these guys are people who have gathered under Shiji's powerful strength. As long as nothing happens to Shiji, they will be very stable. But if something happens to Shiji, they have no loyalty at all, so they quickly find a new home. Take over. Because they lacked confidence in Orgrim and were used to working under big bosses, after Shiji's fall, they naturally wanted to find a boss who was not inferior to Shiji to protect them. At that time, they could be considered to have the first opportunity. After all, the news about Shiji had not been released at that time. The result was good, and it didn't take long for Orgrim to become a real boss. They should have had the guys from Dragon's Power were all confused. I should have regretted it, but how could it be so easy to go back to Melview? It doesn't matter, there are as many people on the sea as there are guys who can adapt to the wind, as long as Melview is fine, Orgrim said nonchalantly. At this moment, the Sphinx came over and looked at Orgrim with a stubborn look on his face. His cute big eyes were slightly moist and red, and his mouth was bulging. He looked aggrieved and looked like the little loli was about to cry. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then quickly asked Sphinx, "What's wrong with you? Who bullied you? Say, I will make the decision for you." "Orgrim, Master Chui, please save Boss Shiji," the Sphinx cried all of a sudden, hugged Orgrim's waist, and begged. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, and before he could speak, the Sphinx cried and said, "I have been here since I was a child. I am just an orphan. Not to mention my family, even my country has been destroyed. The New World is such a cruel place. I was sold to a slave trader and lived a life of no tomorrow without today. I am the boss of Shiji. The Admiral saved me from that darkness. To me, he is not only a captain, but also an admiral and a boss. He is more like my father." Listening to Sphinx's words, Neiman's eyes also turned red, and she couldn't help but said, "Brother, please save the Admiral. When I think of him being imprisoned in the deep sea prison, I feel sad in my heart. It's so uncomfortable. He is already so old and still has injuries on his head. Especially since he is so arrogant, now I am a prisoner, how desperate it is, Admiral him, Admiral him." Orgrim glanced at the two of them helplessly, sighed slightly, and said, "That is an iron wall that no one has broken through for 800 years, impel down Impelton." "Mr. Hammer," Sphinx hugged Orgrim's arm tightly, and then said with tears in his eyes, "As long as you rescue the Admiral, I, Sphinx, will sell my life to you." Orgrim fell silent. In fact, even if he hadn't been there to rescue him, Shiji would have wandered off on his own in 2 years. To be honest, even though Orgrim seemed to be embarrassed, he did think about finding an opportunity to rescue Shiji. After all, there was a huge difference between Shiji escaping on his own and being rescued by Orgrim. Once Shiji was rescued by him, Orgrim estimated that he would no longer compete with him for the position of captain based on his unruly and good-natured nature. In all likelihood, he will live in seclusion in Melview and figure out his own big plans. At that time, I can legitimately inherit Shiji's legacy. And if Shiji strayed out on his own, it would be hard to say. What's more, he, Orgrim, is also the lion disciple after all. Shiji treats him well, and he has a great kindness to Neiman. As a pirate, there must be someone to set it up. If Orgrim chooses to save Shiji, no matter whether he succeeds in the end or not, it will be an expression of compassion and justice. It will be very helpful for him to recruit people on the sea later. What's more, Shiji will come out sooner or later. After he comes out, he will also have a certain reputation for Orgrim. After all, his strength may gradually decline, but where is his reputation? If he retires, if there is an old man in this family, if there is a treasure, it will not be in vain. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 208. After a moment of silence, Orgrim smiled and stretched out his hand to tug on the Sphinx's 2 lovely ponytails. The Sphinx was aggrieved at this time, and did not resist Orgrim's evil hand like before. "There is no need to work hard. I, Orgrim, am not so bored as to take advantage of you," A little guy, ponytail, now when I grab your ponytail, you are not allowed to shoot me, Orgrim said softly. Sphinx's eyes turned red, and big tears fell down. Good, the Sphinx responded quickly. However, this is Imperial after all, and it is not easy to save people. You need to plan carefully. I also have a lot of things to do now, so you can't be too anxious, Orgrim said again. Sphinx naturally knows the pros and cons and harms involved. Even though Orgrim has become a big boss now, his foundation is still not stable. A mere Melview is not enough to support his development. He needs to increase his strength and power. We need to stand firm in the new world. Sphinx also knows that Orgrim has long been eyeing the Sea of Eternal Night and the Island of Eternal Night, Avalon, and he is expected to march into Avalon soon. And it's not that simple to rescue Shiji. It's impossible to just rush in without a plan at all. Then maybe it's not saving people, it's all for nothing if we all go together. Okay, the Sphinx nodded and said. Within 2 years, I will take action within 2 years. This is my guarantee to you. Orgrim said softly. Yes, to save Shiji, it must be completed within 2 years, otherwise why would he be used to save him? Shiji himself escaped from prison. After seeing this calming the Sphinx, Orgrim looked at the others and said, stop standing here, let's go to the main hall and spend this time on Melview. Tell me everything about your situation. The group of people followed Orgrim and arrived at Shiji's hall in a familiar way. Although many people have left Melview, it actually does not appear empty. The maids and attendants are still busy with their own affairs step by step. Orgrim walked into the main hall and sat down unceremoniously on the throne that originally belonged to Shiji. When Shiji was still here, Orgrim was never polite to him, and he also sat on this throne. Now that Shiji has gone to Impelton to further his studies, Orgrim is even less likely to be polite to him. The rest of the people also acted as if they should take it for granted. After all, the people staying here now are all those who chose to join Orgrim. Even Dr. Indigo has no objection at all. He is loyal to Shiji. Orgrim just said harsh words that he will rescue Shiji within 2 years. This makes Indigo feel a lot more at ease. In addition, he originally regarded Orgrim as Shiji's heir. In his eyes, Orgrim was his young master. Now that Shiji is gone, isn't it reasonable to obey the young master? Niemann, please report how many of us are still in Melview. Orgrim sat on the throne with a golden sword and asked in a deep voice. At present, we are the only ones with so many cotters. Niemann said softly. Orgrim glanced at, well, that's okay. He doesn't like the others anyway. In terms of military strength, we still have 2,000 people in our hands, all of whom were the most elite group under the Admiral. Niemann said quickly. Including the more than 1,000 people I have now, is it almost 3,000 to 4,000 people? Enough, Orgrim nodded and said. Is there anything wrong with the library? Orgrim asked again. Dai Peng has been sitting there. Niemann smiled and responded. Don't worry, there are indeed some bastards who think that Mr. Shiji is gone and want to get some good things from it, but I have already killed them all, not a single book is missing. Dai Peng smiled and said. But her smile was indeed a bit ferocious. Shiji's library can be said to contain his heritage and foundation. Without a sufficient knowledge system, it is impossible to support the development of power. After all, others have taken refuge in when I come to you. If you want to train, you have to have something to offer, right? Either teach by words and deeds, or give out secrets. Teaching by words and deeds, for a small group of teams, such as the Roger Pirates, it doesn't matter, they have few people. But there are so many people under Orgrim. How long will it take to teach them one by one? Just Enel and Lucci, Orgrim doesn't have time to take care of them, okay. Therefore, for these talents, it is to let them choose the appropriate path, give them teaching materials, and cultivate talents. This is the accumulation of knowledge. Those people under Shiji did not have the privilege of Orgrim and others in Shiji's library. In and out of the library? Some people think that the reason why Orgrim's strength has grown so fast must have something to do with this library. There may be peerless martial arts hidden in it. In fact, it does have something to do with this library. It has a lot to do with it, and Beckman has benefited a lot from it. So it is reasonable for them to take advantage of Skira's crotch to fish in troubled waters and get some good things. But this is equivalent to taking it from his Orgrim pocket. If you steal something, you'll be beaten to death. Libraries must be protected. Orgrim gave an order. Then he looked at Indigo again, and then said with a smile on his face, Indigo, Boss Shiji is also my master after all. I won't let him temporarily. If he is in trouble, all his hard work will be wasted. In this way, you should be responsible for the big plan of IQ according to the task arrangement given to you by Boss Shiji. The corresponding investment will not be reduced in any way. Of course, I also need to, therefore, we will make some adjustments. For example, I will increase investment in the potion I arranged for you and Nightingale. You must give me results as soon as possible. Do you understand? Brother Indigo also breathed a sigh of relief. Although he already regarded Orgrim as his young master in his heart, to be honest, Shiji and his plan have been his hard work for so many years. He was afraid that Orgrim would play something, one emperor, one courtier, and other tricks. After all, this kind of thing is not uncommon when power changes. Looking at it now, Lord Chui is still affectionate and righteous. Not only did he promise to rescue Shiji, he even kept Shiji's original plan. What a good guy. Yes, Lord Orgrim, Indigo quickly responded. Also, I will leave Melview soon, and this place will no longer be the center of our power. At that time, I will leave some manpower for you, and you will be responsible for staying here, which will also facilitate the development of your plan, Orgrim said softly. Indigo was stunned for a moment. He didn't know that Orgrim wanted to occupy Avalon, and he was somewhat surprised at this time. Don't think too much, it's just that Melview isn't quite suitable, so you'll have to invest a lot in it. Orgrim curled his lips and said. Melview, after all, is Shiji's base camp, not his Orgrim's base camp. And hanging high in the air, Orgrim doesn't have the ability to float fruits. The Black Narwhal is inconvenient to get in and out of. The most important point is that here, his strength cannot fully unfolded. Only in the sea of eternal night where the sun never shines can Orgrim maintain his strongest posture to face all the upcoming challenges. In addition, Orgrim is bound to get involved in various businesses in the dark world, and Melview is not suitable as a base. Therefore, this Melview is the nursing home left by Orgrim to Shiji. He will have input here, but it is the common interest of him and Shiji. He is not going to put the rest of the things here. I want to pack up the big library and take it away. Dai Peng, you are responsible for arranging this matter. After thinking for a while, Orgrim ordered Katarina de Pen. At your will, Lord Orgrim. Katarina de Pen kept her posture very low and responded softly. At this moment, Rengar asked Master Hammer, where should we go after we have arranged Melview? Avalon, Orgrim said without hesitation. Rengar was stunned for a moment, then he reacted and said, yes, Avalon, that is the Sea of Eternal Night. Lord Hammer, your strength can be improved a lot. That's right, I am now the source of chaos, so in that case, I should become the master of the world's most chaotic island, right? Orgrim said with a smile. In the past few days, we have arranged everything in Melview and left enough troops. Almost no one can come up here. Although my banner is not as powerful as Boss Shiji, now, on the sea, there is no one left. Being willing to provoke me is enough to protect Melview. Once the arrangements are made, we will march to Avalon and turn the Evernight Sea into our territory. Orgrim said confidently. Yes, Mr. Hammer. Rengar grinned and said with a smile. Brother, don't we need to recruit new cotters or something? Neiman thought for a while and then asked. Orgrim waved his hand and said, "That's enough for now. Cotters are different from soldiers. The most important thing is fineness, not too much. When we finish Avalon, Hyunjai is considering these things. Orgrim is also thinking about the issue of cotters. Now, he needs some cotters who can lead troops to fight. It is best if they are strong. After all, Orgrim doesn't know much about this, and he doesn't know any tactics of that kind, not to mention someone with a background in the Navy. In naval battles, most of them rely on surprise, and then rely on strength to crush them, and rely on military force to crush them. But grabbing territory is not the same thing. If you want to truly gain a foothold in the New World, you must have strong strength, a strong military force, and even more, you must be able to fight. And this choice. Douglas Barrett, didn't he come from the military? Orgrim whispered softly. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 209. In the eternal night sea, near Avalon Island, Orgrim's black narwhal is sailing through the wind and waves here. It was the first time for Beckman to come here. He held his pocket watch curiously and looked at the time in his hand. Judging from the time, it should be noon now. As he spoke, he looked up at the sky again. Well, the night sky is clear, the stars are shining, and the huge moon hangs in the sky. It's magical, it's really magical. At noon, the bright moon hangs high in the sky. It's a wonder. Beckman said, smacking his lips. Okay, stop being so fussy, isn't it just a dark night? When we passed by Judiciary Island, it was still a sea that never turns dark. The sun was high in the sky at night, and I didn't see you being curious about anything. Orgrim waved his hand and stopped Beckman's literary behavior. Ugh, rude. Beckman shook his head helplessly and said to Orgrim. Things in Melview have been arranged. Dr. Indigo was left there, and he also left him the flag of the Warhammer Pirates and a defensive force of 2,000 people. With Melview's geographical advantage of being easy to defend and difficult to attack, and with Orgrim's reputation, no one should dare to cause trouble. Almost all of the rest were captured by Orgrim. Taken away to Avalon. Haven't found Douglas Barrett yet? Isn't that guy quite arrogant? You are not a person who hides your head and shows your tail. Orgrim turned to look at Gangplank, who was using a phone bug to communicate with someone. After Gangplank noticed Orgrim's gaze, he quickly said a few words to the person on the phone, and then hung up. Master Chui, since the news broke that Boss Shiji was arrested, many of our intelligence department's contacts outside have disappeared, Plank said with some embarrassment. He probably ran away, right? Orgrim continued. It should be, after all, these are all maintained under the prestige of Boss Shiji. Glank nodded and said. Almost all the intelligence members on Melview Island were taken under the control of Plank. Some people from the outside world had already joined Plank. But after Shiji fell after that, many intelligence members still disappeared. Although this brought a lot of trouble to Orgrim, Orgrim was not angry, let alone punished Gangplank. Because he could understand. When you arrive in Avalon, you will be responsible for reorganizing the intelligence department. This time, all power must be in our hands. Orgrim ordered. Yes, Master Chui, I will definitely not disappoint you this time. Gangplank smiled and answered. After a moment of silence, Gangplank hesitated for a while, but finally did not speak. Of course Orgrim saw it, so he asked, what do you want to say? Just say, I, Orgrim, am not a demon, and you, Gangplank, are also my brothers who followed me all the way out of the North Sea. When have I ever wronged you? Gangplank smiled with some emotion, and then said sheepishly, didn't I just mess up what you told me, Lord Hammer? It seems a bit shameless to say this now. It's good to be shameless. I like people who are shameless. Only by being shameless can you achieve great things, Orgrim comforted. Plank was stunned for a moment, then he risked his life and said directly, Master Hammer, I want that superhuman devil fruit. Transparent fruit, Orgrim was stunned for a moment. Yes, transparent fruit, Plank said. Orgrim's expression became strange. He looked Gangplank up and down, then smacked his lips and said, I can't believe that you, Gangplank, with his thick eyebrows and big eyes, can't stand this kind of temptation. Ah, Gangplank murmured something strange. But Orgrim quickly patted Gangplank on the shoulder and said, but it's okay. We are all men. It's completely understandable. But we in the Warhammer Sea, the pirate group, still needs to have a reputation. If you are caught peeping in a women's bathhouse or something, don't say that you are a leader of our Warhammer Pirates group. Gangplank looked at Orgrim in confusion, and then seemed to react. His face turned red, and he quickly said with great shame, Master Hammer, this is not the case, I didn't want to peek into the women's bathhouse or anything like that. Orgrim looked at Gangplank in surprise, and then asked righteously, you really haven't had any illusions? Please tell me. Gangplank seemed a little embarrassed when Orgrim asked him seriously. But he also dared to lie to Orgrim. He said hesitantly, ahem, how many, more or less, right? Ha 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 ha, this is right, let me just say, this is the nature of men. After all, I have thought about this kind of thing. If you haven't thought about it, wouldn't it make people think that I am a pervert? Orgrim laughed and said. Gangplank also quickly continued to explain, but I want to eat the transparent fruit, not mainly for this reason. Mr. Hammer, I am engaged in intelligence now, and the transparent fruit fell into my hands. Being eaten by me is a perfect match. You, an intelligence chief, are going to end up personally? Orgrim said with some surprise. Gangplank smiled and said, come from the masses, go to the masses, and there are some confidential things, and sometimes you don't want to leave them to the people below. Makes sense, Orgrim nodded and said. After a short pause, Orgrim's face straightened and he said, Glank, you have to think clearly. Transparent fruit will not improve your strength much. Think it through. I know. Plank nodded, and then said with a smile, I have thought about it before. Eat a powerful devil fruit and become a powerful cotter, such as the thunder fruit or something. But now, Mr. Chui, I feel that I like intelligence work very much, as if I have found the direction of my life. Later I figured it out, Mr. Chui, you are the one who wants to do big things, so you can't have everything in your hands. There is no shortage of cotters who only know how to fight and kill, and there is no shortage of cotters like me who can fight and kill. In order to improve the overall quality of our Warhammer pirates, I feel that as someone who has followed you all the way from behind my old brother, I should take up this responsibility and help you solve your problems, Glank said in a deep voice. Orgrim looked at Gangplank and nodded with some emotion. He had never thought about treating Plank and Hank badly, an old man from Behi who had been with him all the way. Brothers. Although after many beatings and killings, many of the brothers who came with Behi have died. But most of those who are still alive now have become grassroots cotters on the Orgrim ship. There are 10 or 8 younger brothers in there. And Gangplank and Hank have been taken care of by Orgrim. Otherwise, with their talents, they would not be able to reach this position. Hank, if he hadn't been trained by Orgrim, would he have become a great pirate with a bounty of more than 100 million? It's obviously impossible. Now, listening to Gangplank's words, he was very moved and felt that he had done nothing wrong. Old brothers, you deserve to have walked with him from behind. Good. Orgrim patted Gangplank on the shoulder, and then continued, since you have your own ideas, as a captain, how can I not support you, Plank? I'll leave the transparent fruit to you. I'm looking forward to your future performance. Thank you, Mr. Hammer, Plank said happily. Ahem, of course, it's not the time to eat it after getting to the island. Orgrim smiled again and said. This is natural, I can't hold you back, Mr. Zui. Gangplank also said with a smile. After saying this, Orgrim continued, you still have to pay close attention to Douglas Barrett's matter and find him as soon as possible. Our Warhammer pirates need such talents. Yes, Mr. Hammer. Gangplank nodded quickly and responded. Not long after, Orgrim saw Avalon, which was like a pearl in the night. The lights there were still bright. If the Avalon knife is the eternal night island, then the towns on Avalon must be the city that never sleeps. What to do later? Beckman walked to Orgrim's side and asked. How to do it? Of course it is the style of pirates. Go up and kill a group of them first, kill them until they are so frightened that they dare not resist, then pick out all the thorns, and I will blow their heads off with a hammer, Orgrim said very cruelly. On Avalon Island, there is nothing good at all. Not to mention there are no good things, even if there are some innocent people, Orgrim will kill them. He will not be soft-hearted. As a pirate, how can he have so much integrity? And for so many years, Avalon has never had a real master. Every time some force declares control of Avalon, from then on after trying to rule Avalon, it will always be destroyed quickly, and then new forces will come to power. This happens over and over again, so that the people of Avalon no longer care about the ruler. Their hearts have long been wild. And Orgrim is here to calm them down this time. He will kill these people until they dare not explode. The biggest rule in Avalon now is that there are no rules. And in the future, Avalon, the biggest rules are Orgrim's rules. It doesn't matter what you do on the island, you still have to kill and do whatever you want. Orgrim has no intention of changing Avalon's rules. Tradition, on the contrary, he also likes this kind of chaos and disorder, the tradition of the strong being king. However, everything must be done with the permission of Orgrim, which offends his Orgrim. Red line, then kill them all and sit together directly. Orgrim knows very well that on such an island of chaos and disorder, where dead people are everywhere all the time every day, only power and hegemony are the foundation for maintaining governance, and the more cruel the means, the more ruthless you are, the more you can control the situation. Sure enough, the big guys still have a lot of flowers in their hands, and there are also many monthly tickets. It's the last day, just leave it to me, don't forget it next month, little brother. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 210. The huge black narwhal sailed into the port, and with its strong synthetic metal hull, it directly crushed the two pirate ships blocking the port into wreckage. This entrance showed a very domineering attitude, which also attracted the attention of the villains at the port. A relatively young guy looked at the movement over there and said in surprise, who is this? So domineering? Does he really regard Avalon as his own? Boss, do you want to give them a good look? As soon as he finished speaking, he turned his head and wanted to look at his boss, when suddenly a big mouth slapped him in the face. He slapped the other person to the ground, and blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. And the person who slapped him was his boss. A one-eyed dragon with a big bald head and a thick golden chain hanging around his neck, looking majestic. But this guy's expression at this time was full of awe. You idiot, if it weren't for the sake of your damn dad who blocked the knife for me, based on what you just said, I should have stomped on you. Dulalong withdrew his gaze towards the port and said angrily to the little brother at his feet. Boss, the little brother looked a little at a loss. Open your eyes wide and take a good look at whose flag that is. That's the Warhammer Pirates. Do you know who the Warhammer Pirates belong to? It belongs to the most evil and brutal pirate in history, the source of chaos, Hosgarot Orgrim. This is his flagship, called the Black Narwhal, overlord of the deep sea. He has a bounty of 2.236 million Baileys. There may be someone in the sea who can control him, but definitely not in Avalon. I think the one who can become his opponent must be someone like Kaido, the one-eyed dragon boss said irritably. Hearing what the one-eyed dragon boss said, the younger brother was shocked. He asked in disbelief, "Boss, how do you know so clearly? Do you even recognize his ship? It's normal to know Orgrim's bounty and so on. There are very few people on the sea who don't know this. But there are not many people who can recognize the ship. On the one hand, it's because Orgrim didn't know it before. This ship is rarely used to travel in the New World. On the other hand, many people do not have this awareness." The one-eyed dragon boss touched his blind eyes and said with some emotion, "Of course I recognize it, because this ship, I have been to Avalon before, and that lord also lost his temper in Avalon. The old street was destroyed by that lord, my eyes were also blinded there." "Do you have a grudge against him?" the younger brother asked in surprise. As soon as he finished speaking, the one-eyed dragon kicked this guy on the head with his big foot. "Damn you, are you trying to kill me or something?" the one-eyed dragon boss said angrily. "That big shot, am I worthy of having a grudge against him? It's also my fault that I was too curious at the time and got too close, so I was affected and blinded in one eye. People just do it casually and don't even care about me, you know? It means that in the eyes of that adult, I am just a bug. I am invisible. If I don't pay attention occasionally, I will be trampled to death. When you crush an insect to death, do you think the insect has a grudge against you?" the one-eyed dragon boss said. If it wasn't for the sake of the brother who blocked the knife for him and died, he really wanted to chop this idiot to death and chop him into pieces. At this moment, over at the port, the ship the ladder was also lowered. Then Orgrim was seen walking down the ladder with leisurely steps, followed by Beckman and Mihawk. Behind him were Neiman and Katarina de Pen, Sphinx, Rengar and other cotters. "They are all big shots. Why are all these big shots here?" the one-eyed dragon boss murmured in surprise after recognizing the world-famous bosses. There is no doubt that this one-eyed dragon boss is the kind of guy with a rough appearance and a clear mind. After all, ordinary people are here too. Valen can't get into the boss position, not to mention, he is still the boss of this port. He is a fat guy. It is conceivable that he is still a bit powerful in Avalon. The one-eyed dragon boss looked at Orgrim. The others walked off the boat, and then they seemed to have thought of something, and murmured softly, "The golden lion has fallen. This gentleman has obviously taken over the position of the golden lion, and the big pirates in the New World are snatching what was originally his. The golden lion's territory, but did he go there?" Thinking of this, one-eyed dragon's expression changed. There is no doubt that it is impossible for such a big shot to lose his territory. How can he develop without his territory? How do you get the money? However, many pirates are now clearly trying to seize the territory that originally belonged to Shiji and the Golden Lion. However, this big boss, who is legitimately the heir to Shiji, has enough strength, but he doesn't care about those things at all. Why is that? This is probably because the big man in front of me who has just landed at the port has his sights set on a new territory, and this territory is Avalon. It is said that a strong dragon cannot suppress a local snake, but if it were this adult, Avalon is going to change. The one-eyed dragon boss thought so in his heart. It's not like there haven't been big bosses in Avalon before, let alone some bosses. But can those guys compare to the one in front of me? Orgrim stood at the port. I looked around and saw the Cyclops sitting in the distance under the streetlight, as well as some guys who were obviously the Cyclops' younger brothers. "Are all the port guys so miserable now?" Beckman said with a smile. "In other places, a big brother who can manage a port is still a figure after all. He has no problem with being popular and drinking. How can he come to the port to watch the scene by himself? I guess he is long. These big brothers are deeply afraid that their younger brothers will not be able to see, and they will provoke some serious people. They will be implicated in an instant, and they will have a rest together." "Gee ha 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 ha," Maybe he's not the eldest brother? You can't judge these based on looks, right? Orgrim smiled first, and then waved to the one-eyed dragon very casually. When the one-eyed dragon boss saw Orgrim waving to him, his expression was stunned for a moment, and a touch of fear flashed in his heart, as if he recalled it reminded me of the scene when Orgrim lost his temper on Avalon Island. But then, he became excited, stood up immediately, and his fat figure ran to Orgrim's side very quickly. Before Orgrim could speak, the eldest brother knelt down directly. With a snap, he knelt down and complimented Lord Orgrim, "Welcome to Avalon. Thank you for your favor, little one, willing to serve you." Orgrim was shocked when he saw this. The last time he came, although many people recognized him, how could he be so shameless? Could this be the benefit of fame? Love it, love it. I never thought there was such a good person like you in Avalon, Orgrim said with a smile. This man rushed over and knelt down to beg him to fly away. Orgrim wouldn't kick him away. Although he had been to Avalon once, he still didn't understand many things here. This one-eyed dragon, he looks like he is very capable of causing trouble. Orgrim needs a guy who is capable of causing trouble like this to sort out the situation in Avalon for himself. I don't dare to take it seriously, I don't dare to take it seriously. It's my blessing to be able to serve you, Lord Orgrim, the one-eyed dragon boss said without moral integrity. Orgrim touched his chin, looked at this guy, and then said, "Strange, why do you look so familiar to me? Have we met?" The one-eyed dragon boss was stunned for a moment, then said cautiously, "Lord Orgrim, you have a very good memory. I met him once. The last time you came here, it was also here at the port. I accidentally beat a guy to death. Yes, it has flown to your feet. Thanks to your great wealth, you don't have the same experience as me." Orgrim thought for a while, and it seemed that this was the case, but at that time, this guy had not yet turned into a one-eyed dragon. Alas, Avalon is such a mess. How long have we not seen each other? Just one eye is blind. The pitiful Uncle Orgrim didn't realize at all that this guy's eyes were actually blinded by himself. "It turns out to be you. Let me just say it. It seems that we are still destined. Get up and speak," Orgrim said with a smile. The one-eyed dragon boss stood up with an excited smile on his lips, but his body was still half hunched, with a low posture. "I am your Uncle Orgrim's lackey." Although he felt that this guy had some moral issues, Orgrim didn't care about it. Instead, he asked, "Do you control this port?" "Yes, more than half a month ago, I completely captured this port. I was afraid that my people would not be familiar with the situation, so I kept people here to keep an eye on it, so as not to bump into any big shots," the one-eyed dragon said. "Well, great. What's your name?" Orgrim thought for a moment and wanted to show him some respect, so he asked. The one-eyed dragon's face was happy. The big boss asked his name, which meant that he had registered with him, and he would be considered half of it in the future. "Got a backer?" "Hots, my name is Galdi Hots," the one-eyed dragon said. "Hots, very good. I have a lot to do when I come to Avalon this time, and I am not afraid to tell you. I want to turn Avalon into the territory of my Warhammer pirates. Are you willing to help me?" Orgrim raised his chin slightly and asked a little unruly. Hearing these words, the one-eyed dragon Hots's heart agitated. Sure enough, this master wanted to take Avalon. Now the entire Avalon Vallon, I was the first one to take hold of it. How can I be successful in the future? As for the risks involved, not to mention that this is a real boss. In Hots's view, taking down Avalon shouldn't be a big deal. Question. Let's just talk about Avalon. Why shouldn't you risk your life for anything? He, Hots, was able to become the big brother of the port, which he had earned countless times with his life. Now he has a good opportunity to soar into the sky, and it's just a bad life. That's it. So what if you gamble? Of course, I, Galdi Hots, will be your loyal lackey, Lord Orgrim, from this moment on, Hot said without hesitation. Gee ha 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 ha, you don't have to be a stooge or a stooge, just be a good person. Don't disappoint me. Come on, tell me about the current situation in Avalon, Orgrim laughed and said. The new month has begun, guys, please hand over your monthly tickets. I know you have stocks, so I count on your stocks to live on. There are also flowers. You are welcome. We are all our own people. I am thick-skinned. You can greet me in the face, but if you smash it, I lose.